Have you ever wondered what happens when a black billionaire CEO is discriminated against right inside her own luxury car dealership in Beverly Hills? Not because she couldn't afford it, but simply because her skin color wasn't the right fit for them. But instead of staying silent, she fought back and shook an entire luxury car industry to its core. This isn't just a story about injustice. This is a battle that forced the world to take a hard look at itself. You're watching it unfold, and trust me, you won't be able to look away. Before we dive in, drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and tell us if you were in her shoes. What would you do? Don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss more stories that are changing the world. There are moments in life when no matter how successful you are, the world still insists on seeing you through one lens, your skin color. And for Naomi Caldwell, a billionaire CEO who built Caldwell Motors from the ground up, that moment happened inside her very own showroom. It was a brilliant sunlit afternoon in Beverly Hills. Naomi, dressed, simply stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Caldwell Motors. She carried no fanfare, no entourage, no obvious signs of her immense power. Just a woman looking to buy a car, or at least that's what she intended them to believe. But the chilly glances, the polite yet dismissive smiles, the quick measuring looks, they peeled back a painful truth. In this place, wealth wasn't a ticket to respect. If your skin wasn't the right shade, Naomi could have pulled out a business card, dropped her name, and had the entire staff scrambling at her feet. But she didn't. Naomi knew that to expose a rotten system, you sometimes have to let it reveal its true face in the light. And so an unspoken battle began, not just to reclaim her own dignity, but to dismantle a culture of discrimination that had been quietly thriving within the luxury car industry. That battle, full of betrayal, dirty tactics, and moments of despair, would redefine Caldwell Motors. And more importantly, it would redefine Naomi Caldwell herself. Naomi Caldwell wasn't a legacy name. She didn't grow up among glistening sports cars or sprawling mansions with marble floors. She grew up on the other side of the city where dreams often died before they ever had a chance to bloom. But somehow, Naomi defied every statistic. Brick by brick, she built Caldwell Motors, a luxury automotive brand admired around the world. In a world dominated by long-standing white dynasties, Naomi was a rare anomaly, and not everyone was thrilled about it. On the surface, Caldwell Motors presented itself as a forward-thinking, inclusive brand. But Naomi knew better. One slip-up, one moment of weakness, and everything she had built could come crashing down. That day, in the towering New York headquarters of Caldwell Motors, Naomi sat in her walnut office, sunlight spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Laid out in front of her was a letter short, but heavy enough to anchor her heart. Dear Caldwell Motors, I visited your Beverly Hills showroom fully prepared to purchase the car of my dreams. I asked for no discounts, no special treatment. Yet what I received was indifference, suspicion, and ultimately, rejection. Meanwhile, another customer dressed just as plainly as I, but with different skin, was welcomed like royalty. Naomi gripped the letter tightly, her blood boiling. Caldwell Motors, the company she had poured her soul into, what had it become under the hands of people she trusted? Without hesitation, Naomi picked up her phone and called Daniel Harper, her loyal chief of staff for over a decade. Daniel, she said, voice low but steady, book me the earliest flight to Los Angeles, and don't tell anyone. Daniel didn't ask questions. He knew when Naomi Caldwell moved silently, a battle was about to begin. The next morning, Naomi's private jet touched down at LAX, greeted by California's golden sunlight. No power suits, no limousines. Instead, Naomi wore a simple white shirt, dark jeans, and spotless white sneakers. No luxury handbags, no flashy jewelry. She knew the real test wasn't in walking in as a CEO. It was as just another customer. Beverly Hills stretched out before her picture-perfect, lined with towering palms and sparkling boutiques. Caldwell Motors' showroom gleamed like a diamond, reflecting the bright sun its exotic cars displayed like museum pieces. Naomi adjusted the strap of her small crossbody bag and pushed open the heavy glass doors. Cool air hit her instantly, laced with the scent of new leather and fresh espresso. The space was curated like a gallery, soft lighting, marble floors, sharply dressed staff who moved with the air of superiority. Naomi drifted between the million-dollar vehicles, her eyes scanning the room, not looking for a car, but for something else. A young receptionist, all bright smiles and polished manners, approached. Welcome to Caldwell Motors. How can I assist you today? Naomi smiled politely. I'd like to see the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. For a split second, Naomi caught a flicker of hesitation in the receptionist's eyes. A quick once-over, too fast for most to notice, but Naomi had built a lifetime surviving moments just like this. Please wait a moment, ma'am. I'll notify a sales representative, the receptionist said smoothly, disappearing quickly. Naomi waited. It didn't take long. A man in a navy suit exuding confidence emerged from the staff area. Richard Langford, the Beverly Hills showroom director celebrated for record sales, was whispered about for questionable selectivity in clientele. Good afternoon, Richard said, his smile courteous but his eyes calculating. I understand you're interested in the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. Yes, Naomi answered. Richard gave her a slow, assessing look, not even bothering to hide it. Typically for exclusive models like that, we only accommodate clients with prior appointments, he said, voice smooth but tinged with condescension. Naomi remained calm. I wasn't aware an appointment was necessary, but I'm here now. Richard exchanged a subtle glance with a nearby junior employee who quickly approached Naomi with a look of manufactured regret. I'm sorry, ma'am. That model is currently reserved for a VIP client. It's unavailable for viewing. Naomi tilted her head slightly, glancing through the clear showroom glass. The Bugatti sat untouched under the soft spotlight, no one near it. Interesting, she murmured, with a slight knowing smile. But Naomi didn't leave. She took a seat in the showroom lounge, silent, watchful. And from there, she observed. It didn't take long for the pattern to emerge. White customers casually dressed were immediately welcomed, courted, and given tours. Customers of color, equally polite, equally well-dressed, were met with cold smiles, deflections, and steered toward more accessible options. Naomi didn't need hidden microphones or spy cameras. Every look, every tone, every calculated word wrapped in professional courtesy painted the picture vividly. And today, Naomi Caldwell hadn't come to buy a car. She came to pull the mask off an entire system. Naomi sat quietly in the corner of the lounge, slowly swirling a glass of water between her fingers. Every gesture, every snippet of conversation inside the showroom was being recorded in her mind like a slow-motion film. She wasn't in a hurry. You can't uncover the truth by rushing. You have to wait. Let the cracks in the system reveal themselves. And then, amidst the sharp suits, the polished smiles, and the carefully calculated pleasantries, Naomi spotted it. Someone who didn't fully belong. A young woman, petite, with reddish-brown hair tied back in a neat ponytail, stood behind the secondary reception desk. Her eyes were different. Not the practiced coolness of someone hardened by years in a ruthless environment, but hesitation, unease, a flicker of conscience that hadn't been extinguished. Her name tag read, Maria Torres. Naomi watched Maria closely, not missing a single movement. She noticed the way Maria frowned ever so slightly when she witnessed a black customer being denied a test drive. She caught the way Maria's gaze dimmed when Richard Langford smiled and lavished attention on customers who were the right fit. And she saw Maria's hands tighten around her tablet as if wrestling with herself. That was the opening Naomi needed. Nearly an hour later, Naomi stood and walked slowly toward Maria. She was done playing the silent observer. It was time to plant a seed, a small but deliberate challenge into the fragile crack she had seen. "Excuse me," Naomi said, her voice soft. "Could you help me with something?" Maria looked up startled. She took a second to mask her hesitation with a professional smile. "Of course, ma'am. How can I assist you?" Naomi pointed toward the Bugatti Chiron Supersport, the same car she had been denied viewing hours earlier. "I'd like to take a closer look at that car. Just a quick glance, if that's okay." Maria cast a quick glance toward Richard, who was still engrossed in conversation with a VIP customer nearby. Then she looked back at Naomi. For a brief moment, Naomi saw the battle raging behind Maria's eyes. Maria started, her voice faltering slightly. "That car. It's already reserved." Naomi smiled, not with anger, not with pressure. Just a quiet statement soft as a breeze. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. "I understand." Maria froze. Their eyes met, and in that instant, something silent passed between them. A promise not yet spoken. Naomi gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, then pulled a simple business card from her pocket. No. Flashy logo? No. Long title. Just a name. Naomi Caldwell. She placed the card discreetly on the counter, ensuring no one else would see it, and then calmly walked out into the sunlit streets. Maria Torres stood frozen behind the reception desk. The business card burned a hole in her gaze. Naomi Caldwell. Not an unfamiliar name, not to anyone working at Caldwell Motors. The founder herself. The woman who had broken barriers to build the brand from scratch. And Maria Torres, she had just turned her away. Cold sweat beaded on Maria's palms. Not because she feared losing her job, but because shame was clawing at her from the inside out. She had seen injustice and stayed silent. That evening, Maria sat in her battered old car, parked in the staff lot behind the showroom. Her tablet lay forgotten on the passenger seat, the day's appointments blinking on the screen. But she couldn't focus. The tiny business card sat in her lap, a heavy reminder. Outside, the Beverly Hills sunset flamed across the sky, beautiful in a way that felt almost cruel. Maria knew. If she dialed the number on that card, there would be no turning back. She would be branded a traitor by Richard and the others. She might lose her job, her career, but if she stayed silent, she would lose herself. Hands trembling, Maria dialed the number. It rang once, twice. "This is Naomi," came the calm, steady voice on the other end. Maria swallowed hard. "This is Maria from the Beverly Hills showroom." On the other side, Naomi didn't need to ask. She simply answered, her voice warm and unwavering. "I'm glad you called." That evening, in a small coffee shop on West 3rd Street, Naomi and Maria met. Not as CEO and employee, but as allies, two people united by a wrong that desperately needed to be made right. Maria spoke. Detail after detail. Every unwritten rule. Every time Richard had forced her and others to screen customers based on race appearance or perceived status, Naomi said nothing at first. She let Maria pour out the guilt, the pain, the exhaustion of holding on to a truth too heavy to bear alone. When Maria finally fell silent, her eyes rimmed red. Naomi spoke low but full of resolve. "We're going to change this. Not just for you, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel they don't belong." Maria gripped her coffee cup like a lifeline. She nodded a small nod, but strong enough to ignite a revolution. A revolution that the Beverly Hills showroom wasn't remotely prepared to face. The next morning, Naomi sat by the hotel window, a cup of coffee long gone cold in her hand. Outside, the city of Los Angeles buzzed with its usual hurried, glamorous life. But inside that small hotel room, a plan was forming, tight, bold, and irreversible. She unlocked her phone and dialed Daniel, the partner who had stood by her through countless silent battles before. "Are you ready?" Naomi asked, her voice steady. Daniel chuckled softly on the other end. "Always ready. I also called Michael Reeves." Naomi smiled. Michael, a trusted old friend, a successful businessman, white and with just enough polish and financial clout to have any showroom rolling out the red carpet. "He'll be at the showroom at 10 o'clock sharp," Daniel continued. "The cameras are set. I'll capture everything." Naomi nodded, even though Daniel couldn't see her. The game had begun, and this time they were playing by her rules. At 9. Cinque tanque, O-E-I. Naomi stood across the street, a paper coffee cup in hand, the brim of her baseball cap pulled low to shield her face. From this spot, she had a full view of the Caldwell Motors Beverly Hills showroom without drawing attention. At exactly 10, R0IM, a sleek black BMW pulled up. Michael Reeves stepped out navy blazer cream chinos, polished leather shoes. The perfect outfit for a high-value customer. Naomi watched as Michael walked through the glass doors. It took less than 3 seconds. 3 seconds for a salesperson to rush over beaming. Daniel, seated discreetly nearby, had already started filming. Michael was welcomed warmly, offered a cappuccino or an espresso, escorted straight to the VIP lounge, and when he casually expressed interest in seeing the Bugatti Chiron Supersport, no hesitation, no appointment necessary, no financial background check. Richard Langford himself appeared shaking Michael's hand like he was greeting a head of state. "We're absolutely honored, Sir," Richard gushed, smiling ear to ear. "The Bugatti Chiron is truly the crown jewel of our lineup." Naomi tightened her grip around the coffee cup, her knuckles whitening. Just yesterday, she, a potential customer worth more than the combined value of every car in that showroom, had been treated like a nobody. Yet now, because Michael looked the part, every door was wide open. Daniel's camera captured every second. There would be no excuses, no denials. The evidence was irrefutable. Nearly an hour later, Michael exited the showroom carrying a thick product brochure and a personal invitation to an exclusive unveiling event. He made his way over to Naomi, lowering his voice as he approached. "They treated me like I was dropping $100 bills on the floor," he said. Naomi gave a small nod. "Thanks, Thank you, Michael. You got us exactly what we needed." Michael gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze, his eyes full of support. "Don't let them get away with this. Do it for everyone like you." Naomi watched him disappear into the crowd, silently promising herself. She wouldn't let his courage or hers go to waste. That evening, Naomi and Daniel sat in a small hotel conference room. On the big screen, the footage played back in painstaking detail. The contrasting welcomes, the blatant favoritism, the subtle polished discrimination dressed up as protocol. "We've got everything," Daniel said, a trace of excitement in his voice. Naomi leaned back in her chair, her gaze cool. "It's not enough," she said. Daniel blinked. "Not enough. We need to make them reveal even more. We need to make them panic. We need them to make mistakes." Naomi pressed her lips together. In the world she had fought so hard to conquer, one piece of evidence had never been enough. She needed the next phase, and she already had the blueprint. "We need stronger leverage," Naomi said, slowly weighing each word. "We're going to leak a rumor to the press, just a whisper that someone's investigating the showroom. Let's see how they react." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "When they start panicking, they'll slip up even more." Naomi nodded. "We're not just taking down Richard's prejudice. We're exposing the entire system that's been protecting him all along." Outside, the city of Los Angeles glowed under the night sky. But for Naomi Caldwell, The real battle. The battle for dignity, justice, and respect was only just beginning. She allowed herself a thin, cold smile. We're not just knocking down a door. We're taking down the whole damn wall. The message was sent just before midnight. No signature, no trace. There are allegations of discrimination at Caldwell Motors Beverly Hills. We are investigating. Please respond before the article goes live. Recipient: Caldwell Motors PR Department. Actual sender: one of Daniel's trusted associates posing as a freelance journalist. Naomi sat in front of her laptop watching the message sent notification flash on the screen. She knew by tomorrow morning hell would break loose at the Beverly Hills showroom. And this was only the beginning. 7:45 a.m. Richard Langford stormed into the showroom, his face thunderous. The coffee cup in his hand trembled more from rage than caffeine. His cell phone on the desk buzzed non-stop. An internal PR email demanding clarification. A cold-toned text from the regional director. A missed call from legal. Richard slammed a file onto the desk, scattering papers everywhere. "What the hell is going on?" he roared, his glare sweeping across the office. In just a few short hours, the rumor had spread like wildfire. Staff whispered in corners. There were side glances, nervous murmurs. Richard knew someone had betrayed them. But who? Maria Torres sat stiffly at her desk, heart pounding so hard she was sure others could hear it. Her hands gripped her tablet tightly, trying desperately to look normal. She had seen Richard's reaction earlier, a barely contained explosion of rage, a deadly kind of coldness. She knew danger was circling closer. One mistake and she would be crushed. Her phone vibrated inside her jacket pocket. A short text from Naomi. "Stay calm. Don't break routine. If questioned, deny everything. I'm watching your back." Maria squeezed the phone in her palm and drew a shaky breath. She had chosen this path. Now she had to walk it no matter how terrified she was. Sign. 15 a.m. Richard summoned an emergency all-staff meeting. The conference room was suffocating, the air thick with tension. Richard stood at the front, arms crossed, his eyes raking across the crowd like a predator searching for prey. "We have a problem," he began, his voice sharp as a blade. "Rumors are spreading. Lies unleashed by someone who betrayed my trust. Betrayed all of us." No one spoke. Some kept their heads down. Maria fought to keep her expression neutral, even as sweat slicked her palms. "I'm not stupid," Richard growled. "I know one of you is playing a double game." His gaze lingered on Maria a beat too long. Her heart froze. "But I promise you." Richard continued, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "I will find them. And when I do, they'll wish they never stepped foot in here." The meeting ended in a heavy, stifling silence. Every step out of the room felt like stepping into a trap. That evening, Naomi and Daniel met again in the hotel conference room. Daniel opened his laptop and played hidden camera footage from the day. Snippets of angry, whispered conversations. Nervous glances. Richard is obsessively checking emails and interrogating staff. Naomi watched every second intently. No smile touched her face. Only cold, razor-sharp focus, like a general preparing the final strike. "You think Richard's about to crack?" Daniel asked quietly. Naomi narrowed her eyes, her voice firm. "Not yet, but he's spiraling. And a man in panic makes mistakes." She leaned back, fingers steepled thoughtfully. "Now's the time to strike." Meanwhile, in a battered old sedan tucked behind the showroom parking lot, Maria Torres sat alone. Her phone lit up with a new message. "Get ready. It's almost your time to shine. Naomi." Maria read the message again and again, trembling but determined. There was no turning back now. And honestly, she didn't want to. Not anymore. Not after everything she had seen. Not after all the people she had watched get pushed aside, dismissed. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. Naomi shut her laptop with a decisive click. She stood pulling on her jacket. The cool Los Angeles night brushed against her skin, but inside a fire raged hotter than ever. Tomorrow, Naomi Caldwell wasn't just exposing a single showroom. She was tearing down a system, forcing an entire industry to stare into its own rotten reflection. No more polite warnings. No more second chances. It was time to act. That morning, Los Angeles woke under a soft drizzle, droplets shimmering on car windows, sidewalks, and the lavish billboards of Beverly Hills. Inside a small cafe tucked on a quiet corner, Maria Torres sat in front of her battered old laptop. Her hand trembled slightly as she clicked, but her eyes were steady now. The files were ready. Screenshots of internal emails, messages, instructing staff to discriminate against customers based on appearance, notes from private meetings where Richard Langford had issued verbal directives. Everything? Every piece of a picture that had stayed hidden for far too long. Maria took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and hit send. Recipient. Lisa Monroe, the investigative journalist Naomi Caldwell had personally reached out to. A soft ping echoed. Confirmation. Files received. Maria let her hands fall away from the laptop and leaned back in her chair as if a 1,000-pound weight had finally been lifted off her chest. The truth was no longer locked behind showroom glass walls. It was on its way to the light. Naomi received Lisa's message less than 15 minutes later. Files verified. Publishing within 3 hours. Be ready. Naomi squeezed her phone, feeling her blood rushing fast through her veins. She had prepared for this moment for weeks. But now that it was here, it still took her breath away. It's time, Naomi whispered. Daniel, standing beside her, nodded, his eyes burning. Let's bring that wall down. 11:30 a.m. The headline dominated the front page of one of America's most respected news outlets. Caldwell Motors accused of racial discrimination. Internal documents spark firestorm. Below it, photos, emails, testimonies all sourced from the files Maria Torres had provided. No more rumors. No more speculation. Just the truth, raw and undeniable. The article went viral like wildfire. In under an hour, it racked up hundreds of thousands of shares across social media. From Twitter to LinkedIn, from everyday consumers to major investors, everyone was talking. Boycott Caldwell Motors rocketed to the top of trending topics before noon. Inside the second-floor office of the Beverly Hills showroom, Richard Langford hurled his phone across the desk, roaring. God damn it! Junior managers froze in place, no one daring even to breathe. On the giant conference room screen, the news broadcast played on a loop. Richard's face featured prominently next to leaked internal emails. There was no spinning it now, no denying it. The ground beneath Richard's feet was crumbling fast. He lunged forward, jabbing a finger toward the team. Which one of you betrayed me? Silence. Only the sound of rain tapping against the window. Richard slammed his palm onto the table. We'll fight this. We'll sue the paper. We'll sue that little rat Torres. But just then, the conference room door swung open. An HR representative stepped inside his face, a mask of icy professionalism. Mr. Langford, he said firmly, you are hereby placed on immediate administrative leave pending an emergency board review tonight. Richard froze. No, this can't be, he muttered. But the look in the HR rep's eyes told him. This time no one would cover for him. That night, in the executive boardroom at Caldwell Motors headquarters in New York, Naomi stepped in. No longer just the silent investigator. No longer the sideline CEO. Tonight, Naomi Caldwell would reclaim justice not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been dismissed for not fitting the mold. Seated around the long table were 14 board members, some of the very same people who had doubted her, ignored her warnings. But now, with the scandal exploding in front of the public's eyes, they had no choice but to listen. Naomi didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need theatrics. She simply lay down. The evidence, the data, the undeniable truth. And when she finished her address, the room was suffocatingly silent. Not one board member could meet her gaze. Not one dared to offer an excuse. Jonathan Fields, a senior, notoriously conservative board member, slowly stood. "We'll put it to a vote," he said. Naomi's eyes glinted. The battle wasn't over. But tonight she knew. She owned the battlefield. The executive boardroom on the top floor of Caldwell Motors headquarters was drowning in a heavy silence. No one spoke. Only the slow ticking of the wall clock broke the stillness, counting down the final moments before an ending long overdue. At the head of the table, Jonathan Fields, one of the board's most senior members, adjusted his glasses, his voice deep and deliberate. "Before we proceed with the vote, we will allow Mr. Langford one final statement." Every eye turned toward Richard Langford, the man who had once ruled this room with arrogance, now looking like a cornered animal. Richard stood up, straightened his suit collar, desperately trying to recover the commanding presence that had once made employees tread lightly around him. But the confidence was gone. Only bitterness and desperation remained. He began, his voice low-strained with barely suppressed rage. "I have dedicated over a decade of my life to Caldwell Motors. I turned the Beverly Hills showroom into a flagship of profitability. I defended this brand's image, something many of you in this room once praised." He swept his gaze around the table, pausing momentarily as it passed over Naomi. "The accusations against me are a gross exaggeration. A smear campaign designed to tarnish my reputation and harm this company." He paused as if willing his words to sink deep into their minds. "Yes, we had customer screening protocols," Richard said, dropping all pretense. "But it was to protect the brand. We cannot allow just anyone to walk in and devalue Caldwell Motors." Several of the older board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, subtly distancing themselves from his damning words. Naomi remained seated, face impassive, her gaze sharp as a newly honed blade. When Richard finished, silence thickened the room once more. Jonathan turned to Naomi. "Ms. Caldwell, would you like to say anything before we proceed?" Naomi rose, her movements calm and precise. No prepared speech, no papers in hand. She met the eyes of every board member, her voice steady and cold as steel. Caldwell Motors was never built to be an exclusive club for the privileged few. It was built to stand for excellence for anyone willing to reach for it. She walked slowly along the length of the table, each step deliberate. If today we turn a blind eye, if we choose to protect prejudice under the guise of commercial efficiency— Naomi paused, letting her gaze sear into each face. "Then this brand no longer deserves to exist." She stopped beside Richard, who glared at her with seething hatred. Naomi didn't flinch. She faced him squarely, her voice dropping to a razor-sharp whisper. "You speak of revenue. I speak of honor. You speak of brand image. I speak of the soul of the brand." Once again, silence claimed the room. But this time it wasn't fear that held their tongues. It was the crushing weight of truth. Jonathan gave a slight nod. "We will proceed to vote," he announced. He turned to the board secretary. "Secret ballot." One by one, each member cast their vote. Ballots slid across the table like shards of fate. Naomi stood still, hands clasped lightly in front of her, watching each movement without prayer, without hope for luck. Truth, she knew, didn't need luck. It just needed to be spoken. 15 minutes later, Jonathan stood holding the results in his hand. He cleared his throat, his eyes flicking briefly toward Richard before he read aloud. The result of the vote: 12 in favor of termination, 2 opposed. No applause, no sighs of relief. Just a heavy collapse of everything Richard Langford had once believed untouchable. Jonathan folded the paper, his voice devoid of emotion. "Sir, Richard Langford, by board decision, you are hereby terminated from your position as director of the Beverly Hills showroom, effective immediately." Richard Langford stood frozen. In that moment, every year of power, every smug handshake, every backroom deal, every smirk of triumph crumbled like a sandcastle under a tsunami. He slowly turned to Naomi, his face red with fury. "You'll regret this," Richard hissed low and venomous. But Naomi only smiled, a soft, almost pitying smile, like speaking to a petulant child. "No, Mr. Langford, you will." 2 security officers moved forward silently. Richard struggled for a moment, but finally gave in, walking out of the room that had once been his kingdom, a kingdom now forever closed to him. When the door shut behind him, Jonathan turned back to Naomi for the first time all evening, showing a hint of respect in his gaze. "We need you to lead this reform, Naomi. Caldwell Motors must be rebuilt." Naomi nodded, her eyes burning with unshakable determination. "We're not just cleaning house. We're rebuilding from the ground up." 2 weeks after that fateful meeting, Naomi Caldwell stood center stage at Caldwell Motors headquarters before hundreds of employees, members of the media, and investors. Outside, rows of Caldwell Motors flags fluttered in the breeze. Inside, the heavy air of crisis had been replaced with something new, a palpable sense of anticipation laced with anxiety and hope. Naomi wore a deep navy suit, simple, sharp, commanding. No need for flashy declarations. Today, her very presence was the loudest statement she could make. She stepped up to the microphone, the spotlight illuminating her composed but resolute face. "Good morning, everyone." Naomi began, her voice steady and clear through the sound system. "We've been through a trying time, but like every crisis in history, it has forced us to confront who we really are. And today I stand here not just to apologize, but to act." Behind her, the screen lit up, displaying the bold headline, "Caldwell Motors 2, Zero Equity, Transparency, Excellence." Camera flashes flickered like a constellation. Naomi stepped forward and laid out the comprehensive reform plan she and her team had spent weeks meticulously preparing. New customer engagement policy. Every showroom must follow a standardized customer service protocol, no discrimination based on race, gender, or appearance. All employees must sign a fair conduct agreement. 2. Implicit bias training program. Mandatory for all staff, from entry-level employees to executives, aimed at recognizing and eliminating unconscious bias in customer interactions. 3. Internal Equity Oversight Department. An independent team led by Maria Torres tasked with receiving, investigating, and addressing any reports of discrimination. Factor. Drive Forward Scholarship Program. Full scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in the luxury automotive industry, fully sponsored by Caldwell Motors. Theme. Public commitment to transparency. An annual report will be published to track progress on equity and diversity initiatives. Naomi lifted her chin, meeting the crowd's gaze head-on. "We are not here to patch wounds," she said, her voice low, but resonating with power. "We are here to change the blood. We are here to be reborn." A thunderous round of applause erupted, not the polite kind, but real heartfelt applause from people who understood they were witnessing a historic moment. At the back of the hall, Maria Torres stood quietly. Pinned to her chest was her new employee badge. Maria Torres, Internal Equity Supervisor. Just a few months ago, she had been a receptionist frozen between fear and silence. Today she was part of a revolution. Maria looked toward Naomi, her heart swelling with a pride too deep for words. When the press conference ended, Naomi stepped off the stage and headed backstage where Daniel was waiting. He handed her a phone, its screen lighting up with constant alerts. Caldwell Motors Reborn, a model for post-crisis reform. Forbes. Naomi Caldwell, the woman who changed the face of the luxury car industry. The New York Times. Caldwell's redemption story, turning crisis into opportunity. Bloomberg. Naomi simply smiled. Not a triumphant smile, but a quiet, relieved one. The smile of someone who had weathered a devastating storm, knowing the real battle was just beginning. That evening, alone in her quiet office overlooking the glowing city, Naomi stared down at the bustling streets below. She knew there was still so much to do. Prejudice would not be erased with a single press conference. It would take relentless, everyday work. But she also knew something more important. Change had begun, not through grand speeches, but through action, through determination, through the courage of those willing to rise when the world had conditioned them to bow. Naomi gripped her coffee mug tightly, smiling quietly to herself. Tomorrow, more showrooms will undergo retraining. Tomorrow, more customers will walk through those doors without being judged by the color of their skin or the clothes they wear. Tomorrow, Caldwell Motors would truly belong to everyone. And this was only the beginning. When autumn descended on New York, the city put on a new coat. Golden leaves draped the trees. Cool winds swept down Fifth Avenue, and cozy cafes glowed warmly against the crisp air. Inside a small, weathered cafe tucked on a quiet street, Naomi Caldwell sat quietly by the window, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. No assistants, no cameras, no tense meetings. Just Naomi, a woman who had fought with every ounce of her soul to change a small piece of this world. On the table in front of her, a copy of Forbes caught the soft morning light. The cover featured Naomi herself, her face resolute and fierce. Across the page ran the headline, "The Woman Who Shattered Invisible Walls." Naomi smiled faintly. Not a smug smile, but the quiet smile of someone who knew. True victory isn't measured by awards or headlines. It's measured by the hearts you move and the systems you force to change. Caldwell Motors had now become a new symbol in the luxury automotive industry, a pioneer brand for equity and diversity. A company that didn't just sell cars, but sold trust that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Across America, showrooms transformed. New codes of conduct were posted at every entrance, pledging fair treatment for all. Employees hired from diverse backgrounds, reflecting a broader, richer tapestry of the world. Bias awareness training became the norm, not the exception. Caldwell Motors' sales, after an initial dip during the crisis, had soared back faster and stronger than even the most optimistic forecasts. Customers returned not just for shiny new vehicles, but because they saw themselves welcomed, seen, and respected. But Naomi's impact didn't end there. Luxury brands once considered untouchable were now being questioned. How did they treat their customers behind closed doors? Who truly got access to their showrooms? Was fairness a marketing slogan or a reality? The media buzzed with reports of new reform programs, new diversity pledges, all sparked by the fire Naomi had dared to ignite. Those who once believed the system will never change were now forced to admit, sometimes it only takes one person, one courageous soul to begin it. That evening, Naomi left the cafe, stepping onto a sidewalk, shimmering under the glow of city lights. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. A message from Maria Torres. "Miss Caldwell, I just led my first new employee training session. I stood before more than 200 people and told my story. I never thought I'd be able to do that. Thank you. Truly thank you. Naomi paused right there amid the rush of strangers. A cool autumn breeze whirled the golden leaves around her boots. She lifted her head toward the star-scattered sky. No one had handed her this battle. No one had opened the doors for her. Every inch of ground she'd gained had been carved out through unseen scars, through persistence, through falling and standing back up again. But in return, she had proven one undeniable truth. No matter how solid a wall may seem, if enough people believe and keep knocking, someday cracks will form. And through those cracks, light will pour in. What will you do when faced with injustice? Will you stay silent, or will you rise just as Naomi did? The answer isn't found in speeches or trending hashtags. It's found in the small choices you make every single day. And who knows, maybe one small act of courage you choose today could ignite a fire that the whole world will one day see. Because sometimes to change an industry, to change a world, you only need to take the first step. Raise your voice. Make the decision not to bow, just like Naomi Caldwell did. And now, it's your turn. Naomi Caldwell proved. You don't need permission to demand respect. You don't need approval to challenge injustice. All you need is enough courage to begin. If this story resonated with you, share it. And remember, the next time you walk into a room, a showroom, or an opportunity, never let anyone make you believe you don't belong there. Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe to discover more journeys that are changing the world.